Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of the EDI Jester. How are we, everybody? And it's good to be talking to you again. Here's an interesting one, right? A while ago, I brought you the information about a gentleman called Mr. Kevin Lister. I've spoken to Kevin, and he's a decent man. And Kevin Lister was embroiled in a situation because his college let him go because he refused to bow down to the Church of Gender. That's the truth of the matter, right? So there was a 17-year-old, obviously deeply unwell girl who thought she was a boy. What she's doing in the college is beyond me. I mean, she's not well. I mean, she needs to get herself well before she returns to education and begins her career. This young lady who thought she was a boy was insistent that everybody call her by her, the name she wanted to be called and pretend that she's a boy. So this is one of those cases that is at the heart of the whole thing, really. And Kevin is a man who's been put through the most appalling situation. Because when eventually, what happened was he took a case, and the Disclosure and Barring Service, now for those of you who don't know what that is, they keep a list of people who can't, who've got a criminal record. So if you apply for a job and that job is in a sensitive area, for example, caring for the elderly or looking after children or teaching children or anything of that nature, then what's called an Enhanced DBS is done. And that Enhanced DBS will tell you the criminal record of any individual, even if that criminal record is spent. Now, the term spent means that after a certain time, it's not that it's forgotten, it's always there, but it's not treated as part of this disclosure regime unless there is an enhanced disclosure. So let's say Jimmy, helped himself to some candy when he was 19 and wandered out the shop and tried to run away and they caught him. What it means is that Jimmy, who now at 34 has got a wife and 2 kids and is an accountant, isn't forever held up by the fact that when he was 19 he did a stupid thing, right? So that's part of it, right? It's the part of the everybody can make mistakes and everybody deserves a second chance, except when it comes to safeguarding. So if this guy diddled with children, he can't work with children. Simple as that, right? If you're a risk to children, you can't work with children. So this makes perfect sense to most people in terms of if you're going to go and work in a school, they're going to look up your bum to make sure you're okay, right? Metaphorically, obviously. That would be a very funny interview, wouldn't it? So metaphorically, right? That's what they're going to do is look at your bum. Now, Kevin, who is a man of faith and therefore not just that, but also a man who believes that sex is real and that gender identity is a dangerous idea. We know it is. Gender identity ideology is a dangerous idea. But he was sacked by his bosses at a further education college after refusing to refer to a 17-year-old female student by a male name and pronouns without gaining their parents' permission. The maths teacher was then informed in December that he was being placed on the children's barred list by the Disclosure and Barring Service, the Home Office body responsible for carrying out criminal record checks, because he engaged in conduct which had endangered a child. This is the rhetoric of nonsense. This is the rhetoric of what they talk about. He's the man that's protecting the child. Black is white, up is down, usual stuff, yeah. So the Disclosure and Barring Service, which is a government quango, which I think is about to get an enema along with the rest of them, right, are backing the gender ideologues. They're saying, no, this unreality must be treated as real. That's the Disclosure and Barring Service, who are responsible for safeguarding. So making sure these people don't get through, any loopholes, because if there are loopholes, they'll find them if it gives them access to children. Now, the problem is this child, it was a child, they were under 18, but was 17. And in effect, the response that happened and the way that the college acted is because the 17-year-old was told, no, we are not going to believe in your delusion. That's why what happened to Kevin happened to Kevin. So Kevin did all this, went to court, blah, 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 lost, was told that he can no longer work with children and put on the same list as paedophiles. Kevin, my good man, it's a terrible, terrible thing. Terrible thing. And Kevin, speaking in the Mail, in which the article is today, he says, as a result of being placed on this list, I can barely do anything, he said. I certainly can't get a teaching job and won't be able to continue the voluntary work with the local athletics club, as I've done for the last couple of years, because they require DBS validation. I certainly can't get a teaching job and won't be able to continue the voluntary work. That's so worrying. What a terrible thing. Potentially, I can't even go to the United States because visa applications get reviewed against barring lists. They're trying to end him. The DBS are trying to end him. So it's an astonishingly draconian decision putting me in the same category as a paedophile. They say I'm a danger to children, but this is absolutely absurd when I put my student safety as my number one priority. If you can't say something to a student because you might upset them, then by that logic you can't tell a student to work harder if they score a bad mark in a test. This is capitulating to grievance and gender. This is capitulating to weakness. And saying that a mentally ill 17-year-old has more of a right to be mentally ill in the college than a teacher has to point it out. That's insane. That's utterly insane, right? So what's happening now is Kevin is taking the government to court. He's suing them, right? And I think this will be interesting. One of the strange twists of this was that the decision about Kevin came the same day as the government issued its guidance on gender, right? This is happening to one man, just an ordinary man doing his job in a college. There's thousands of these stories, you know, folks, thousands. We hear about the big ones, but there's thousands of these. Right, so the result, as a result of his behaviour, the DBS authority concluded he had caused distress and emotional harm to a young person. Oh, get in the bin. Emotional harm. Sod off. You're responsible for your emotional reactions, nobody else. Right? This is not some, hostage situation, is it? You hyperbolic whinge beetles. It's utter rubbish of the first order, and it just shows that the DBS service, a quango, as I've said in my previous videos this week, the DBS service is just as unfit for purposes as the rest of them. The enema needs to reach them. Kevin explained further that he's bringing the legal action in the hope of ensuring other teachers who hold similar gender-critical beliefs are not subjected to the same disproportionate punishment. To enforce teachers to support a child's fantasy that they are the opposite sex, and then you fire them and ban them from working with children in the future is something that you would imagine only happening in Stalin's Russia. The judicial review was launched this week with a pre-action letter that went to the upper tribunal of the High Court. Mr. Lister is represented by barrister Anna Lufty, who's wonderful, our lovely Anna. And last night, a DBS spokeswoman said, educational settings implement their own safeguarding policies and are responsible for ensuring that all employees are committed to supporting the well-being of pupils and students. They can't see the irony. There is nothing to do with making sure that the students are being looked after if you allow them to lie about who they are, right? Nothing. Or if you allow them to wallow in their mental illness rather than getting treatment. Shouldn't be in the college. It's that simple. No, there's something wrong with you. Go home. Come back when you're ready to be educated. Go see the doctor. I don't get it, right? Don't get it. It's going to be one to watch, folks. Do not capitulate in any way to these lunatics. I don't care if they're 8. I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Here's a biscuit. Go and play in the garden. 17. I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. Sorry, no. Repeal the GRA. I'll see you later. Ta-da.